My name is Kasia Piskorek. I'm from Wrocław, Wrocław University of Technology. And my presentation is about something that I'm dealing generally during my PhD research, which is public participation, public involvement, and satisfaction of citizens' needs thanks to local authorities' actions and ventures. So what I will try to present today is much more general than previous presentation, and I will try to give a general taste and view of the common problems and common chances and opportunities of post-communist countries if it comes to public participation and public involvement. So just to make a short introduction, as all of you know, post-communist countries were developing in a different way than other European countries. Because of the socialistic system was influencing very strong also the spatial planning development. Well, nowadays it is noticeable that these former communist countries are facing similar problems in terms of economy, policy, or sociological issues. Before the transformation, the situation, if it comes to spatial planning, was of course a bit different in each of the countries, but some of the points, some of the characteristics were similar. As for example, the spatial planning system was strongly centralized in most of the Soviet Union until the end of the 1980s. More or less, the state was controlling and deciding about investments, starting from the funds, going even through the design matters. And the government was responding to the citizens' needs without involving people, citizens, into a dialogue, without public consultation. And when the transformation happened, after the abrupt collapse of communist regimes, there was a very immediate turn, like from a strongly centralized system, spatial planning system also, to a very strong decentralization. And after this turn, spatial planning starts happening at the local level. So it's begun to be a local issue where local authorities have more power and in the decision-making processes, and what follows that also citizens and local societies were more involved in this spatial planning issues. And of course, citizens for the first time were not only allowed into these planning processes, but they were also, but this public participation, public involvement was introduced into a new legal basis of spatial planning. And for example, in Poland, they prepared local Spatial Planning Act. They prepared it quite fast, because already in 1994, after decentralization, they prepared a big document that was already introducing as a public participation as an obligatory action during spatial planning urban ventures at the local level. And there are two main documents that are representing spatial planning at local level in Poland. It's land use planning and local plan, and in both of them, in a process, there is a requirement to involve citizens involve public into it. Here I would like to interrupt a bit just to make one thing clear that might be useful in the future, because very often, and I did this as well, I'm using public participation and public involvement quite freely, while there is a difference between these two things. Public participation is, let's say, more specific, and it requires active involvement of participants, while involvement itself can be passive, and it may be based only on a phenomenon when all interested sides are somehow included into the process. They are interested, they are sharing information, they are looking for information about it. So recent challenges for public involvement at the moment in Western European countries are completely different than in post-communist countries. Here I've chosen some examples from North or Western European countries to show, to picture what environments involved and interested in public involvement and public participation are dealing with. For example, in Ireland, they are wondering how to improve public involvement with the introduction of citizenship skills in early teaching programs. So what they do, they train kids in kindergarten, in primary schools, to talk about space, that they can have their own opinion, that they can express their opinion, and that it matters. In Finland, on the other hand, they're trying to work on a language, on vocabulary that special planners are using in official regulations, just to make it more understandable for just common people. In Denmark, they are very often introducing ICT to build a constant dialogue between local authorities and citizens. So they are developing very attractive way, very also economical way to share this information and to discuss about urban issues. In France, they are trying, in these small societies, they are trying to mark their presence. They try to show the difference that we are here, we are living here, we are associating ourselves with the space, and they're working on how to make it visible so that people are feeling sort of proud of their own neighborhood. And in the Netherlands, they are trying to respond to the citizens' needs directly. Like even if it's a very small venture like local park, they are questioning people around what do they expect about the space. For example, if the park is going to be introduced in a space close to the area where elderly people live, it has completely different shape than, for example, if it's in a city center. For elderly people, they are trying to avoid, let's say, bushes and dark corners. They are just growing grass or trees. They are cut in a way that people can feel safe in this environment. And if it comes to post-communist European countries, the problems, the challenges are completely different. In Poland, in Czech Republic, in Slovakia, and other countries, public participation is facing completely different issues. People have to answer the question how to involve people into planning processes, how to make them interested in special planning processes, how to make citizens associate themselves with the space they are living in, how to minimize conflicts, and actually that should be bolded, because it's a very big problem if it comes to public involvement and public participation. And how to establish a dialogue between citizens and local authorities, and is it possible? How to help it? How to build trust? And of course, nowadays also how to adjust to European Union requirements in these matters. Well, for sure we can. There are also some chances for post-communist countries, where even if we are some years later, if in evolution of public participation in spatial planning. In comparison to Western European countries, there are still some chances we can use and opportunities. We can, of course, learn from their experiences. We can introduce good practices. We can use ICT technology to do public participation, to arrange the public participation. We can invest in learning and developing citizenship skills, which is actually the very weak point in post-communist countries. Of course, building a constant dialogue between citizens and local authorities, I think we should start even from the very simple dialogue, which won't end up as an argument. And of course, it's very important to develop citizens' awareness and commitment into urban processes, so that people would find themselves somehow as a part of these processes. So as a conclusion, public participation is all around Europe, all around the world, is becoming more and more important, together with the complexity of urban ventures. So this is something that will develop, and there will be a need, a growing need of involving public into these processes. In comparison to Western European countries, post-communist countries' experience in public involvement started to develop quite late, but it doesn't mean that we don't have a chances to develop it in a way that it's efficient and it's working. And it also shows, I mean, these cases I took into account while preparing this presentation. It is noticeable that the advancement and efficiency of public participation or involvement generally is strongly related to advancement of democratic system in European countries. We can see this even if we take into account only the problems that public involvement is facing nowadays, that in Scandinavian countries or Western Europe countries, their problems are based on something completely different. And in post-communist countries, we are still dealing with the lack of citizenship skills, or lack of trust between the authorities and citizens. And this kind of interaction involving public and spatial planning processes might be very important if it's only prepared and made in a proper way. It might be very helpful in optimizing the urban ventures because, well, citizens, public is the main user of the space. So, thank you very much.
Questions?
My question is about participation and involvement. Yeah, just the question was born, you answered it in the next slide, but however, you said that participation just started to be invented in our countries. Yeah? And do you think that that what we are inventing that is participation and involvement both. That is not some other kind of dealing with public, because I think there is the third dimension or way how to deal with public, and that is top-down way.
First, I would like to mention, maybe I haven't been clear enough. It's not an invention, I would rather say reinvention, because public involvement, even if it was not supported and even if it was not used by the governance, it still existed. For example, when people, that's a very common example, when, for example, the new housing estate is built and there's no infrastructure yet. People are choosing the paths they are walking. So this is sort of participation. They are shaping the space by themselves. So it is subconscious, of course. It's not that they are organizing meetings, discussing, and okay, from now on we're starting to go this way. But it's hard to deny that it is sort of influence.
I thought about the information that what we are speaking about in our countries, that the legally in legislation, what you mentioned, that it came in legislation, the call is about for participation, but in reality this is just information.
This is a problem, because the requirements are like, you have to involve people. It's like, of course, everybody are wishing it would be a dialogue, a discussion on, let's say, master plan. But in the best scenario, it's just information. In the worst scenario, there's a terrible fight between planners, designers, local authorities, and citizens, inhabitants of the area. So this is very, very problematic. Friends of mine who are working in an office, special planning office, they hate when they have to interact with inhabitants. They're having stomachache. They are very stressed because they know that that they are going to be attacked by people, because they are feeling like, if you want to, there's nothing for free. They don't believe in common good. This is another issue, that there's no belief in common good in our societies. So people are very untrustful, very skeptic if it comes to interventions, that there's somebody trying to convince the society that we are going to introduce a structure that is going to be good for everybody. So they don't believe, they are against. They prefer that things will stay as they are, because they are not afraid of changes. They are not afraid, that their space will be raped.
I would like to ask you, how is it practically in Poland?
It's developing, both public participation and public involvement. But as I mentioned before, the biggest problem is like the lack of trust to the local authorities, to the government, that there's a lack of dialoguing. Public participation is just a single event that we are developing, introducing a local plan, so we are going to show it to make an information for the citizens and inhabitants. It's not a constant process, like we are keep on dialoguing and then we are introducing a plan and nobody is surprised because we know where the action were leading for. It's a case of community. If people, they have sense, they have developed their own community, local community, it's quite easier for them to believe in common good. So this is why public participation might be a bit more successful in villages outside the big cities. So maybe that's the issue.
In preparing for this today, I was looking at the things that we all find beautiful and that we all love. And because democracy is a very young invention, actually, I mean, not a young invention, but young implemented. And I would say not only in the so-called East, but in the West as well. Don't you think that education has to come first?
I absolutely agree with your point that we need education. And it's not like very fast and easy solution. It's not going to be like this. We change the education system, and then public participation and million other problems will be solved. It's a very long-term process and probably complicated. I was mentioning that they're doing this in Ireland already. They're organizing workshops in kindergarten, so where kids are very small. They are teaching them to judge the space, to talk about space, to also express their feelings about space, to express their expectations. They are playing games like Little Design, how to redesign their playground. And it may sound crazy, but it develops in their little minds that they can change something. They're showing them that, okay, you're gonna decide what color we're gonna paint your chairs in the playroom, and how we're gonna put them, where we're gonna put each thing. So then they are somehow associating this, like, my voice, my opinion counts, so I can express that. And the other thing is also that they are looking at the space. They are also prepared to judge to talk about the space, to judge the space. Another thing is that also in Poland there's a problem with the language, with the documents that are absolutely Chinese for common people. So common people are not able to understand these local acts, local documents. So this is also an issue. So it should be slowly, like from both sides, like building a dialogue, maybe starting in the kindergarten, preparing kids to talk about space, and then also developing skills, citizenship skills, older people, and yeah.
I've listened very carefully, and this is a topic that's really important to me. It's actually why I initially came to the Czech Republic. And when I first started coming, it was clear to me that this idea of process, and you've mentioned that word many times in your presentation, it's so fundamental that now at the Czech Technical University we use the term participatory process. So we include process in the name, rather than an explanation of what public participation means. So just a quick suggestion for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.